Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Daily English Practice. I'm Jessica, and today we're exploring an emotion that every single person experiences: fear.
Hey there, I'm Jack, and yes, today we're talking about fear, worries, and all those anxious feelings that come with being human. More importantly, we're teaching you how to express these feelings in natural English.
Fear is such a universal emotion, but it can be really difficult to articulate, especially in a second language. You need the right vocabulary to express everything from minor worries to intense phobias.
Exactly. And there's a huge range of fear, from being slightly concerned about something to being absolutely terrified. English has so many different words and phrases to capture all these shades of fear.
Right. Today we'll cover how to express different levels of fear, how to talk about specific worries, how to describe what scares you, and how to discuss both rational and irrational fears.
We'll also teach you phrases for asking others about their fears, responding when someone shares their worries, and talking about overcoming fear.
And, as always, we'll practice with real conversations so you can hear these expressions in natural contexts and understand the subtle differences between them.
Perfect. So everyone, let's face our fears together and learn how to talk about them.
All right, Jack, let's start with the basics. What are the most common ways to say you're afraid of something?
The most straightforward phrase is, I'm afraid of. For example, I'm afraid of spiders, or I'm afraid of flying.
Teaching note: I'm afraid of is the most basic and common way to express fear. Use this with nouns or gerunds, verb plus ing. Very natural and appropriate for all levels of fear, from mild concern to serious phobia. Can be used casually or seriously depending on tone.
Great point. You can also say, I'm scared of, which is essentially the same. I'm scared of heights, or I'm scared of dogs.
Afraid and scared are very similar, though scared might sound slightly more informal or childish in some contexts.
Good point. You can also use the verb fear in a more formal way. I fear failure, or I fear rejection.
Fear as a verb is more formal and literary. You'll see it in writing more than casual conversation.
Now, let's talk about different levels of fear. For mild concern or worry, you might say, I'm worried about.
Yes, I'm worried about my exam, or I'm worried about my parents' health. This is concern, not terror.
You could also say, I'm concerned about, which is similar but slightly more formal.
I'm concerned about the economy, or I'm concerned about climate change.
For slightly more fear, you might say, I'm nervous about.
Right. I'm nervous about the presentation, or I'm nervous about meeting her parents. This includes that physical anxiety feeling.
Now, for stronger fear, you can say, I'm terrified of, or I'm terrified that.
Terrified is intense. I'm terrified of sharks, or I'm terrified that something bad will happen.
You might also say, I'm petrified, which means so scared you can't move, like you've turned to stone.
I'm absolutely petrified of public speaking, or I'm petrified at the thought of flying.
Another strong one is, I'm frightened, though this is slightly more British English.
Right. I'm frightened by loud noises, or I'm frightened of the dark.
Now, what about when something is scary, rather than saying you're scared? How do we describe frightening things?
Great question. You can say something scares me or frightens me.
Spiders scare me, or flying frightens me. The thing itself is the subject.
You can also say something is scary, frightening, or terrifying.
Horror movies are scary, or that roller coaster was terrifying.
You might also say something freaks me out, which is very casual.
Teaching note: freaks me out is informal American slang meaning something disturbs, scares, or unsettles you. Very common in casual conversation, especially among younger speakers. Can mean scary, creepy, or just deeply unsettling. Don't use in formal contexts.
Freaks me out is so common. Clowns freak me out, or that movie freaked me out.
Or you can say something is creepy, which means scary in an unsettling, disturbing way.
That abandoned house is creepy, or he gives me creepy vibes.
Now let's talk about specific types of fears. A phobia is an extreme, irrational fear of something.
Teaching note. A phobia is a clinical term for an intense, irrational fear that causes significant anxiety or avoidance. Many phobias have specific names: arachnophobia for spiders, claustrophobia for enclosed spaces, acrophobia for fear of heights. Saying, "I have a phobia," is stronger than "I'm afraid," and suggests the fear is disproportionate to the actual danger.
Right. Common phobias include arachnophobia, fear of spiders, claustrophobia, of enclosed spaces, acrophobia, a fear of heights.
You might say, "I have a phobia of needles," or "I have claustrophobia." This indicates the fear is extreme and possibly irrational. It goes beyond normal concern.
Now, let's talk about worries. I'm worried that is followed by a clause expressing your concern.
"I'm worried that I'll fail the test," or "I'm worried that they won't like me."
You can also say, I worry about, to describe ongoing concerns.
"I worry about money constantly," or "I worry about my children's future."
Another way is, what worries me is, which introduces your specific concern.
"What worries me is that I don't have enough savings," or "What worries me is the lack of communication."
You might also say, my biggest worry is, or my main concern is.
"My biggest worry is losing my job," or "My main concern is my health."
Now, let's talk about when fear is intense or overwhelming. You might say, I'm paralyzed by fear.
Teaching note. Paralyzed by fear means fear is so intense it prevents you from acting. You're frozen or unable to move forward. Strong, vivid expression. Shows fear has become debilitating, used metaphorically unless referring to literal physical paralysis.
Paralyzed by fear means fear is so strong it stops you from acting. I'm paralyzed by fear of failure, or he was paralyzed by fear and couldn't move.
You might also say, "I'm frozen with fear," which has the same meaning.
Or fear gripped me, which is more literary but shows sudden, intense fear.
"Fear gripped me when I heard the noise," or "A wave of fear washed over me."
These are more dramatic storytelling phrases. In everyday conversation, you'd be more likely to say, I panicked.
Right. "I panicked when I couldn't find my keys," or "Don't panic, everything will be okay."
Now, let's talk about describing what happens when you're afraid. You might say, my heart was racing, or my heart was pounding.
These describe the physical sensation of fear, your heart beating very fast.
I was shaking, or I was trembling, describe the physical shaking that can come with fear.
"I was shaking with fear," or "My hands were trembling."
You might also say, I broke out in a cold sweat, which means you suddenly started sweating from fear.
Teaching note. Break out in a cold sweat means to suddenly start sweating from fear, anxiety, or shock. The sweat feels cold and clammy. Common phrase for describing physical fear responses. Can also be used metaphorically for just remembering something frightening.
I broke out in a cold sweat when I saw the bear, or just thinking about it makes me break out in a cold sweat.
Another phrase is "my blood ran cold," which means you felt a sudden chill of fear.
My blood ran cold when I heard the scream. This is quite dramatic and literary.
You might also say, "I had butterflies in my stomach," though this can mean nervousness or excitement, not just fear.
Right. I had butterflies before the performance could be nervous excitement or fear.
Now let's talk about when you're trying to avoid something because you're afraid. You might say, "I'm too scared to."
I'm too scared to speak in public, or I'm too scared to try skydiving.
Or, "I'm afraid to," followed by a verb.
I'm afraid to fail, or I'm afraid to get close to people.
You could also say, "I avoid," to describe fear-based avoidance.
I avoid flying whenever possible, or I avoid horror movies because they scare me.
Now let's practice with a real conversation. I'll be someone afraid of public speaking, and you're my supportive friend helping me prepare.
Perfect. Let's do it.
I have to give a presentation at work tomorrow, and I'm absolutely terrified.
I know public speaking scares you. What specifically are you worried about?
Everything. I'm worried that I'll forget what to say, that people will think I'm incompetent, that I'll completely freeze up there. Just thinking about it makes me break out in a cold sweat.
Those are really common fears. Have you had to present before?
A few times, but it never gets easier. I'm always paralyzed by fear beforehand. My heart races, my hands shake. I hate it so much.
I understand. But remember, the audience wants you to succeed. They're not looking for you to fail.
I know that logically, but my biggest worry is that I'll panic in the moment and make a fool of myself.
What if we practice together right now? That might help you feel more prepared and less afraid.
That would actually help. I'm just so nervous about tomorrow. What if something goes wrong?
Even if something goes wrong, you'll handle it. And you know what? The fear is always worse than the actual event.
You're right. I need to stop letting fear control me. I'm worried I'll let this fear hold me back in my career.
That's actually a good motivation. Channel that concern into preparation. You've got this.
Perfect. We used so many fear and worry phrases naturally in that conversation.
Right. Terrified, scares you, worried about, break out in a cold sweat, paralyzed by fear, heart races, hands shake, biggest worry, panic, nervous, afraid, all in one conversation.
Now let's do another scenario. This time I'll be someone with a phobia talking to a therapist. That's you.
Okay, let's go.
Thanks for seeing me. I have a severe phobia of dogs, and it's really affecting my life.
Tell me more about this fear. When did it start?
I've been afraid of dogs since I was a child. A dog bit me when I was 5, and ever since then, I'm absolutely petrified whenever I see one.
That makes sense. A traumatic experience can definitely create a lasting fear. How does this phobia affect your daily life?
I avoid going to parks, I won't visit friends who have dogs, and I even cross the street if I see someone walking their dog. It's gotten so bad that I'm scared to leave my house sometimes.
It sounds like this fear is really limiting your activities. What happens physically when you encounter a dog?
My heart pounds, I start trembling, I feel like I can't breathe. Sometimes I panic so much I feel like I'm having a heart attack.
Those are classic symptoms of a phobia response. What you're describing sounds like it might involve panic attacks too.
Yes, I'm terrified that I'll have a panic attack in public. That fear almost scares me more than the dogs themselves.
Fear of fear itself is very common with phobias. The good news is that phobias are very treatable through exposure therapy and other techniques.
I want to get better. I'm tired of being controlled by this fear. My biggest concern is whether I'll ever be able to be around dogs without freaking out.
With proper treatment and gradual exposure, many people overcome their phobias completely. It takes time and courage, but it's definitely possible.
Excellent. That conversation demonstrated more clinical, therapeutic language about fear and phobias.
Right. We used phobia, petrified, traumatic experience, panic attacks, panic, phobia response, exposure therapy, freaking out, all relevant to serious fear discussions.
Now let's talk about phrases when you're trying to overcome fear or face it.
You might say, I'm facing my fears, or I'm confronting my fears.
I'm trying to face my fear of public speaking, or I'm confronting my fear of rejection.
Another phrase is, I'm pushing through my fear, which means doing something despite being afraid.
I'm scared, but I'm pushing through it, or I pushed through my fear and did it anyway.
You could also say, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
This means doing something that makes you uncomfortable or afraid. Public speaking is scary, but I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
Another phrase is feel the fear and do it anyway, which is actually the title of a famous self-help book.
Right. It means don't wait for fear to disappear, act despite the fear.
Now, what about asking others about their fears? You might say, what are you afraid of? Or what scares you?
These are direct but appropriate. What are you most afraid of in life? Or what's your biggest fear?
You could also ask more gently, is there anything that worries you about this situation?
Or are you nervous about something? Which is softer than asking about fear directly.
If someone seems scared, you might ask, what's wrong? You seem frightened.
Or are you okay? You look scared.
Now, let's talk about responding when someone shares their fears. First, validate their feelings.
Right. You might say, that's a completely understandable fear, or it makes sense that you'd be afraid of that.
Or a lot of people are scared of that, which normalizes the fear.
You could also say, I can understand why that would frighten you.
Avoid saying things like, that's silly, or there's nothing to be scared of. Those dismiss their feelings.
Instead, offer support. I'm here for you, or we can face this together.
Or how can I help you feel less scared? Or what would make you feel safer?
If you've experienced the same fear, you might share, I was afraid of that too, or I know how scary that can be.
Now let's talk about some idioms and expressions related to fear.
There's scared out of my mind, which means extremely frightened.
I was scared out of my mind when I heard the noise.
Or scared to death, which is similar, terrified.
I'm scared to death of snakes, or that movie scared me to death.
There's also scared stiff, which means so scared you can't move.
I was scared stiff when I saw the ghost. Well, if ghosts were real.
Right. Another expression is my heart was in my mouth, which means you were very frightened or anxious.
When the car almost hit us, my heart was in my mouth.
There's also hair-raising, which describes something terrifying or thrilling.
It was a hair-raising experience, or that roller coaster was hair-raising.
You might also hear spine-chilling or bone-chilling for something that makes you shiver with fear.
That horror story was spine-chilling, or the scream was bone-chilling.
Another idiom is shaking in my boots, which means very afraid.
I was shaking in my boots before the interview. It's slightly humorous.
Now let's talk about different categories of fears. There are rational fears, fears that make sense based on real danger.
Right. Being afraid of a growling dog or a dangerous situation is rational.
And there are irrational fears, fears that aren't based on real danger but feel overwhelming anyway.
Like being terrified of harmless spiders or flying, which is statistically very safe.
You might say, I know it's irrational, but I'm terrified of...
This acknowledges that logically the fear doesn't make sense, but emotionally it's still real.
There's also the distinction between fear and anxiety. Fear is about something specific and present. Anxiety is about something that might happen.
Right. You feel fear when facing a bear. You feel anxiety worrying about what might go wrong tomorrow.
Though people often use these terms interchangeably in casual conversation.
Now, your homework. This week, identify 3 things that worry or scare you.
For each one, practice expressing it in English using the phrases we taught today.
Write them down or say them out loud. I'm worried about. I'm afraid of. What scares me is. My biggest worry is.
This self-awareness practice will help you understand your fears better while practicing the vocabulary.
Also, notice how fear is portrayed in English movies, TV shows, or books. Pay attention to the language used.
All right, let's recap everything we learned today.
We learned basic fear expressions. I'm afraid of. I'm scared of. I fear. I'm worried about. I'm concerned about. I'm nervous about.
We learned intensity levels: terrified, petrified, frightened, paralyzed by fear, frozen with fear.
We learned casual expressions: freaks me out, creepy, scared out of my mind, scared to death, scared stiff.
We learned about phobias: I have a phobia, arachnophobia, claustrophobia, acrophobia.
We learned physical fear reactions: heart racing, heart pounding, shaking, trembling, broke out in a cold sweat, blood ran cold.
We learned worry phrases: I'm worried that, I worry about, what worries me is, my biggest worry is.
We learned avoidance language: I'm too scared to, I'm afraid to, I avoid.
We learned about overcoming fear: facing my fears, confronting my fears, pushing through fear, stepping out of my comfort zone.
We learned idioms: hair-raising, spine-chilling, heart was in my mouth, shaking in my boots.
We practiced 2 complete conversations showing different fear contexts.
Remember, fear is a normal, natural emotion. Everyone experiences it.
What matters is acknowledging your fears, understanding them, and not letting them control your life.
And having the vocabulary to express fear in English helps you communicate better and seek support when you need it.
If you found this episode helpful, please let us know. Leave a comment and tell us what's one fear you've overcome or one you're working on.
Or share which phrase from today you found most useful.
Next time, we're covering English phrases for excitement and enthusiasm, how to express joy, anticipation, and those moments when you're really looking forward to something.
Until then, be brave, face your fears when you can, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it.
Take care, everyone.
You're braver than you think.
Bye.
See you next time.